and you hinted at this yesterday, I just really don't think that if there is a team that does not slip up at all this year, it's Georgia. And Ohio State's a close second in that conversation. 3 times, you're right, that is insane. But let me ask you this, though. Who's more dangerous having seen an opponent 3 times, Kirby or Lane Kiffin?
Kirby. But here's the problem. If Lane loses 2 of those, because we both have Georgia and Ole Miss in our SEC championship game, they face each other in the regular season, I have a hard time believing that Lane doesn't get one of them. I have a hard time believing that.
And that is because that either means that they win in the playoff or they win the SEC championship game.
Or they win in the regular season. Which then
that feels the least likely, though.
At home, them winning at home in the regular season, that feels the most inevitable.
Well, I would argue, though, like a mid-year
because
Georgia.
You would have probably Georgia. You would have Georgia versus Ole Miss in the SEC championship in Atlanta, and then you would have 1 versus 8, 1 versus 9, and them in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, the Peach Bowl. It's inevitable here. But look, regardless, we both have Georgia winning here. And continuing to move on. Some teams we haven't talked about: Oregon, Ohio State, Miami. Your thoughts on those and where they fell?
Yeah, I'm not going to be coy about Miami. If I'm projecting another potential undefeated team, I think that Miami's schedule and how good their roster is, they're able to do it. I think that probably more realistic that they go 11-1 and then they beat out Florida State. Florida State finishing 10-2. Landing where they will. I almost kind of debated Miami losing to Oregon in that spot if they played one another. Did you have Miami playing Oregon too? I don't think you did.
I don't believe that I did. I had Miami playing Ole Miss.
I almost debated that.
Oregon playing Liberty, and then Oregon playing Utah, and then Oregon winning, and then facing Georgia in the Final Four. That's what I think is more realistic. Because here's the thing, Joe. I do think. Here's a hot take. I think Ohio State they're going to split.
You think that they're going to split one of those games against them?
Yeah, I think they're probably going to split. However it goes, I mean, we'll see. But I think Oregon's going to be 5-6. Okay. And look, here's the thing that we're learning in both of our playoff brackets. The race to be number 5 has never been more like apparent than right now, because you're going to face the number 4 seed. That might be Utah for you to make a run. I mean, look, you have Notre Dame at your number 5. I have Oregon at number 5, and both of us have them going on playoff runs. So like Miami as an example, we both have them at 3. I have them facing Ole Miss. You have them facing Oregon. I mean, the tougher draw here is for you to, or the better draw here is for you to be a 5 seed.
Well, that was, it kind of got clouded by us yelling at each other. The 5 seed is the most favorable seed to be given.
And you get a playoff game at home.
You get a playoff game at home. You get to play the G5 team. And as good as Utah could be this year, you get to play the weakest seeded team. So you get to build momentum by playing 2 winnable games, theoretically. If you're the team that loses the Big Ten or loses the AC, or not the ACC, the SEC, or if you end up like Notre Dame, as I'm throwing out there. If any of those things happen, you have a very walkable path. Now you have to face off with Georgia, which is going to be a brutal matchup, but who knows who ends up there that they don't build enough momentum to make that game closer than many would expect. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but in the near future, that 5 seed is going to be far more valuable, I would argue, than having the 4 seed.
You do get a bye, though, in a crucial situation. Like a bye could be a big deal if you got some nagging injuries.
Sometimes a lot of time off can be bad, though.
A week?
Well, I mean, not just
every team's gone through 2 bye weeks in the season already. Do you know in the third time you're coming off of it? Joe, a team we haven't talked about. So we talked about Miami a little bit if we want to circle back to them. But here is my hot take of the day. I almost put Ohio State at 1 because Georgia does have a tough schedule. And if I could see Georgia slipping up in the regular season, okay, and winning the SEC championship game and getting there and winning it, I don't know if Ohio State's going to lose. because of the perception of what others would have said, and yes, I am listening to what others would have said, I very much debated last night when I sent you my final list to put Ohio State at number 1. Here's the truth, man. I think that they're going to run the table. I think that they do have an easy schedule. I think that I hope the playoff gods, to some extent, grant us this Georgia-Ohio State matchup that we want to see. But, Joe, here's the truth. Name a weakness. Name a weakness that they have. You can go through all 12 of these teams, take Georgia out, or all 11 teams. They're better than Miami. They're better than everybody that they face here. And when I look at them, man, I don't want to say it's inevitable, and I know that they have a lot of things and a lot of changes that they've had. It's hard for me to see them not winning, making the playoffs, and making a run here.
Yeah, if I had to pick a team that had the highest likelihood of going undefeated, it would be Ohio State for what you just talked about. Their roster is unbelievably gifted. There are some
staff unbelievably gifted.
Right. There's some position groups that maybe aren't as strong as one would hope. And Will Howard, there's some question marks on like, what is he when he steps in? How good is he actually going to be for them? But outside all that, their schedule is reminiscent of that Michigan schedule last year where it was a cakewalk. They walked right through it. They waltzed right through it. Their opening slate is against a couple of G5 teams, and then they square off mostly with the back end of the Big Ten. Them going undefeated, I think, is super likely. I think Georgia does still run the table, as we were talking about a second ago. But if there is a team that, or in this conversation, if one of the two did slip up in the regular season, it'd probably be Georgia, because they've got so many more tougher schedule. Yeah.
They got to go to Texas. They go to Ole Miss. So, yeah.
This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/trainingcamp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today, because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions, with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.